Hi everybody, welcome to this week's video on the Mahabharata. In today's video, I'm going to cover a couple of key themes. I'm going to talk about what are the cultural influences and core themes of the Mahabharata. I'll talk about what the caste system is. I'm going to cover what dharma is. I'm going to cover what karma is. I'm going to cover what samsara is. So, dharma, karma, and samsara are core concepts from Hinduism that you need to understand for a number of scenes in the Mahabharata to make sense. And finally, I'm going to cover the significance of mothers and goddesses in Indian mythology. And as a quick explanation of the image, this is a sculpture of Arjuna in Bali. I've talked about the similarities between the Odyssey and the Mahabharata, and like the Odyssey, the Mahabharata has a set of core characters and relationships that have become incredibly influential to culture, but not only in India, but also globally, considering the impact of the Indian diaspora and also the importance of the Mahabharata and its influence upon world literature and culture. The core central heroes of the Mahabharata are the Pandava brothers, and I would say the main character is probably Arjuna. In the Mahabharata, Arjuna's dynamic with his brothers is incredibly important, and also his relationship with Krishna is also incredibly key. Krishna is Arjuna's ally, his political patron, his best friend, and also his charioteer in the upcoming war. And Krishna is the king of Dwaraka. He's also the avatar of the god Vishnu. And if your chariot driver is an avatar of a god, then that definitely speaks to your spiritual and social status. So, as an example of the impact of the Mahabharata on global culture, and visual culture, I have a couple of screenshots for you guys. The image on the left is an image of Krishna and Arjuna together. Krishna is the one wearing the crown. From the 2013 Star Plus TV series on the Mahabharata. The image in the center is Giampolo Tomasetti's graphic novel adaptation of the Mahabharata, and the image that we're seeing is Krishna driving Arjuna's chariot. And on the far right, we have a bilingual Sanskrit English edition of the Mahabharata, and the cover shows once again Arjuna in the chariot with his iconic bow and arrow, and Krishna as his charioteer, the one driving the chariot. The Mahabharata has influenced media and the arts over centuries. It's been represented in sculpture, in paintings, in music, in architecture, and with the advent of global media, it's also impacted film and television culture. And as an example of that, I have a couple of images for you guys. On the left-hand side, going clockwise, once again, we have images from the 2013 Star Plus series of the Mahabharata. We have Draupadi right here. Right below Draupadi, we have four of the Pandava brothers. And over here in the center, we have Arjuna, and over here we have Bhima. And right next to that, we have another screenshot, another image from the TV series. We have Krishna in the center. We have Gandhari, who's the wife of King Dhritarashtra. Over here next to him, we have Arjuna next to her. Then we also have Draupadi and we have Bhima. Every single member of the Pandava brothers has an iconic weapon. And while Arjuna's iconic weapon is the bow and arrow, Bhima's iconic weapon is the mace. And on the above left-hand side, I have an image of the upcoming Mahabharata film adaptation that is being made, directed by the iconic director S.S. Rajamouli. And Rajamouli is also the director of the 2022 hit film RRR, and he's also known for adapting classical Indian epics in his blockbusters. So he will be doing the upcoming Mahabharata film. I have more images for you guys. In the center, we have Draupadi, we have Arjuna with his bow and arrow. We have all five Pandava brothers below the image of Arjuna, with Arjuna in the center. And on the right hand side, below, we have an image of Karna, the long lost Pandava brother. And right above, just again to illustrate that the representation and cultural imagination of the Pandava brothers and the stories from the Mahabharata have been influencing arts and media and culture for centuries. I have an example of the Pandava brothers, a sculpture of the Pandava brothers etched into the side of a temple. So, spoiler alert, the conflicts and tensions that we're reading about in the Mahabharata are going to lead to a civil war, the Kurukshetra war, between the Pandava brothers and their cousins, the Kauravas. The Kauravas are the sons of King Dhritarashtra, and the main sort of member of the Kaurava brothers is the main antagonist of the story, Duryodhana. So, just like with the Odyssey, that is based around a real historical event, the Trojan War, the Kurukshetra War is again really happened. It's a real historical event. The Kurukshetra War has been dated to around 8th and 9th century BCE. And just again, like the Odyssey, which accumulates mythological elements as the story gets told and retold in oral culture, um, the Mahabharata gets compiled in its final form between the 3rd century BCE and the 3rd century CE. It's once again it's ascribed to the sage Vyasa, who, unlike Homer, makes several very interesting cameos in his text and his story. And if you're an iconic writer, why not? You are completely entitled and privileged to make cameos in your story. And something that's important to understand about the genre of the Mahabharatas is that it's very multi-generic in the sense of it has and includes a number of genres. The original form of the Mahabharatas encompasses 18 books or 18 parvas, and it includes sacred texts that can be read on their own, like the Bhagavad Gita. It includes dialogues and soliloquies. It includes stories within stories, action scenes, mythology, and much, much more. A number of core themes from the Mahabharata that I'd like you to think about and to track as we read the story include the theme of heroism. What does it mean to be a hero? It includes the theme of kinship. Once again, the core dynamics of the story and the conflict between the Pandava brothers and the Kaurava brothers, this dynamic makes sense when you think about and when you consider the traditional Indian extended family system. So this enormous sort of family and the conflict that breaks out between the family members. This once again, this story makes sense within the context of understanding the cultural background of the extended Indian family system. A key theme is also family loyalty and family competition. And so not only do you have the central conflict between the cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, but different members of the family also get pulled into this conflict as they're forced to take sides. So characters like Bhishma or Vidura, they again also get pulled in and forced to basically take sides. And this again is tied to the extended family system, right? That this story is depicting. Some key themes also include samsara, or the Hindu concept of reincarnation that I'm going to go over. It also includes karma and includes the caste system. So I'll talk about these in just a bit. And finally, the story also centers upon the theme of dharma, or the idea of virtuous conduct and sacred duty, and specifically the nuances of dharma, which is the tension at times between universal dharma and specific dharma. So I will begin with the caste system, which is a incredibly old system of social hierarchy and racial hierarchy that has been prevailing in India for at least 3,000 years. So, this system of racial and social hierarchy is based upon the labor that different social groups perform in society. There are four main castes. You have the very head of this kind of social pyramid. You have the Brahmins, who are the priests and the teachers. The next level, we get the Kshatriyas, or the warriors and the rulers. The third level, we get the Vaishyas, who are the middle class, the farmers and the traders and the merchants. And the fourth level of this social hierarchy, we get the Shudras, who are the laborers, the people who perform menial labor or labor in the society. And then we get the Dalits, the who have also been called in older secondary literature as outcasts, untouchables, though it's not appropriate to refer to them as such anymore. So the Dalits are again kind of again on the very, very outskirts, the very out fringes of the social system. So this is just to simplify things. These four main levels further divide into 3,000 subcastes and 25,000 sub-subcastes, again, depending upon work or labor or occupation, right, of different groups within society. And I just want to emphasize how pervasive this is. It's just so old, and just it's something that influences the social dynamics of not just India but South Asia generally. You will find the caste system also in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, Nepal, and again sort of um, other countries, right, within South Asia. And these castes are also imagined to correspond to different body parts of the creator god Brahma from the Trimurti. So the Brahmins, because they perform the labor of the intellectual labor and the spiritual labor in society, they are thought to correspond to the head or the mind, right, of Brahma. The Kshatriyas are imagined to correspond to the arms of Brahma, because again, you can't fight wars without the use of your arms. The Vaishyas are imagined to correspond to the torso of Brahma, because they do the work of growing food or creating wealth as merchants, and this is something that sustains society. The Shudras again perform the labor, right, within society, and so they're imagined to correspond to the legs of Brahma. So the caste system emerges as a result of the cultural encounter and cultural conflict between the Aryan populations who enter India, 2000, roughly 2000 BCE, and the indigenous Dravidian populations who to India. The first time the caste system gets mentioned is in the Manusmriti, the ancient book of Hindu law, which was written somewhere between 1250 BCE and 1000 BCE. So once again, we know that the caste system at least was around at least from that date onwards. We don't know when it began exactly, but we know that it was around at least, at that date. Something to keep in mind about the caste system is that traditionally, depending upon which dynasty was governing South Asia, there was an amount of fluidity and social mobility between the different castes. It was possible to have, again, movement, social mobility between the castes. But the caste system was actually made a lot more rigid and fixed by the British during the period of British colonialism in the 18th and 19th centuries. So the British, when they entered India and as a group of foreigners trying to rule a very large population, so they did this by the system by social taxonomies and social categories, where they were writing down and kind of codifying the difference between what they perceived as different groups, and again codifying their categories into law, right? Again, fixing things, and so preventing movement and change between different groups. And also, again, as a small group of people coming in from the outside and trying to rule over a large population, again, they also follow the practice of divide and rule, like setting different groups against one another as a way to again solidify their political power. So this again contributed to the fixing and the hardening of the Indian caste system, which has impacted the modern politics of South Asia to a very large degree. So the caste system also has an urban-rural divide, and so the caste system tends to be stronger in rural areas and less strong in urban areas, where because of economics and jobs and other opportunities, there's a greater degree of social mobility. So one thing I should point out about the caste system is that if it sounds different, I do also want to encourage you to look inwards and think about systems of social and racial hierarchy within our own societies. And in this context, I referenced the work of Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Isabel Wilkerson, and her book Caste, where she talks about and compares the caste system in India to the system and the hierarchy of race within the United States. And so, just as in India, you have this system of social stratification based upon the labor that different groups perform, in our own society, we also again have a system of social stratification based upon differences, social differences, ethnic differences, racial differences. And again, if we think about like these different groups, we do associate certain kinds of work to them. We can think about, say, people who are white, or people who are Latinx, or people who are South Asian, or people who are Far Eastern, or people who are Black. So for each of these groups, right, there are certain occupations that tend to correspond to them. So once again, um, the system of social stratification is not unique to India, um, and there are similarities between the caste system and other systems of social stratification like race in our society. So the caste system is intertwined with a number of other core concepts that are important to understand the story of the Mahabharata. And one of the core, one of the most important of these concepts is the concept of dharma, which is the moral law of virtuous conduct. So in the Abrahamic context, moral law, or the idea what it means to be a moral virtuous person, is determined by scripture, the Bible or the Torah or the Quran. And so in India, again, you have the Vedas, you have the Aranyakas, and you have a number of other spiritual texts, and they shape the idea of dharma, or what does it mean to be a virtuous person, or the code of conduct that a person should follow in order to be considered to be a virtuous, upstanding person. So within the Hindu concept of dharma, there are two sort of broad categories that I want you guys to track. There's the idea of universal dharma, right? Virtuous behavior based upon universal human values like truthfulness, non-injury, or generosity. And so a good example of that is the Indian independence leader Mahatma Gandhi, and his campaign of winning Indian independence through the practice of ahimsa, or nonviolence, what is called, his specific practice of nonviolent protest, which is based upon again, an ideal, right, a dharmic ideal. So that's the idea of universal dharma. And then you also have specific dharma, or the idea of virtuous behavior as governed by the rules of your specific caste or your specific group. So an example of this is in the Mahabharata, you have the character of Vidura, who's the uncle of both the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and Vidura saves the Pandavas from a very painful death, right? And he does this by going against the king and going against the prince, King Dhritarashtra and Prince Duryodhana. So the value of taking care of your family members and not taking life unjustly, right? This is universal dharma. So this leads Vidura to go against the king, right, and provide help to the Pandava brothers and help them escape. So for specific dharma, we can think about the episode with the princes, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, when they finished their military training with Drona. There's a tournament where the princes compete against each other before the public to see who's the strongest. And the long lost Pandava brother Karna appears, and he wants to take part in this tournament. And at this point, nobody knows what Karna's real identity is. What his background is. They don't know who he is. And Arjuna refuses to fight Karna. So this may seem harsh, but if we have to think about it in the context of specific dharma. For the warrior class, for the warrior caste, they're only supposed to fight other members of the warrior caste. And so because they don't know what Karna's background is, what caste he's from. Therefore, Arjuna doesn't feel that it's permissible or that he should fight or that it's virtuous to fight Karna. And so again, this specific encounter makes sense within the context of specific dharma. We can also think about the important, sort of Hindu concept of karma. And karma, again, it's at this point, it's a word in the English language. There's a Taylor Swift song called Karma, but our Western understanding of karma is a little different than the Vedic or the Hindu idea of karma, and I'll explain that. So karma is tied in Hinduism to the idea of samsara or reincarnation. Whereas in Abrahamic religions, there's the idea of having one life, and after life, after death, there's heaven or hell. In Hinduism, there's the idea of reincarnation. So the idea that after death, you are reincarnated into another life. And this cycle of rebirth and reincarnation continues until you're able to reach moksha, which is the Hindu version of nirvana. So, karma is the universal law of cause and effect, where the deeds that you do, your ability to follow dharma or not follow dharma, depends, basically shapes how you get reborn in your next life. So, it's the accumulation of your deeds, of your moral conduct that determines how you get reborn. So we tend to take it as a coworker is mean to another coworker, and the next day, like that, the person who's being mean gets, hit by a car or something like that. And so you might hear someone say, "Oh, that's karma for you." But it's not really it's not really taken in that tit for tat sense. It's rather the accumulation of your ability to follow dharma and how that determines the way you get reborn in your next life. So within samsara again, like if you've had if you've, followed your karma, if you've had good karma, if you followed dharma within your life, then in your next life you might get reborn as a member of a higher caste. You might get reborn as a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. You might even get reborn as a god or goddess or a nymph. But if you've not followed dharma, if you've done negative actions, you followed evil actions, then you'll get reborn as a member of a lower caste. You might get reborn as a Shudra or a Dalit or even an animal. So once again, these concepts are very much intertwined. The final thing I'm going to explain to you guys is the idea of motherhood in Indian culture. And I'm explaining this as a way to understand the episode in the Mahabharata where Draupadi ends up with five husbands. So, Arjuna obviously wins Draupadi's hand, and they bring her home to their mother Kunti, and as to introduce her to her new daughter-in-law. And because they've been working as Brahmins, and because they've been disguised as Brahmins, and gaining their sustenance and making a living by asking for alms, right, which is a practice at that time. Kunti, when they enter the house, Bhima jokingly kind of says to his mother, "Mother, look at the bhiksha that the bhiksha, the alms that we've gotten for today." And so Kunti doesn't see what they're talking about, and she says, "Oh, well, make sure you share it amongst yourselves." And they do, right? And this is taken as a binding command that they can't that Arjuna can't break. And even though Kunti realizes her mistake and she asks them not to follow through with it, still this is how Draupadi ends up marrying all five brothers. So to understand this episode, you have to understand a little bit about the mother as a sacred figure in Indian culture and in Indic culture generally, and I would say South Asia generally. The mother, even though Indian society generally tends to be patriarchal, but in any case, even though we have the system of patriarchy, the mother is very much the dominant figure in Indian families. She's a spiritual core, the emotional core of the family, in a very intense way. She almost has I would say, a holy power over her children, like what she says and the moral guidance that she provides, or what her suggestions and her commands to her children are binding, have this almost holy force. And I want you to understand the reason why. So the mother's high status in South Asian families, right? This is influenced by goddess culture in Indian mythology. So when you read Indian sacred texts like the Vedas or the Upanishads, the divine, like when you the imagery of the divine is often kind of imagined in terms of motherhood. So the mother kind of determines the imagery of the mother shapes the divine to a very large degree. So, as an example of that, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, I am the father of this universe, I am the mother of this universe, and the creator of all. I am the highest to be known, the purifier, the holy Om, and the three Vedas. So, once again, Krishna not only compares himself to be the father of the universe, but also the mother of the universe. And in another sacred text, the Moksha Dharma Parva, Bhishma says, the mother is the remedy for all calamities. The existence of the mother provides one with protection, reverses deprivation. The man who is denied of the prosperity enters his house uttering the words, O mother, when you are with me, neither grief nor weakness ever attack me. So, once again, this speaks to the incredible power of the mother. So the importance of the mother again stems from goddess culture and specifically the figure of Parvati, who's the consort of Shiva. So Parvati is Shiva's consort. She's the divine mother goddess, the maternal goddess, right? That you pray to when you're seeking for maternal divine aid for whatever problems or issues befall you. So, as Parvati, she's the perfect wife. She's the perfect mother. The couple is imagined to live on Mount Kailash in the Himalayan mountains. Um, and so, as Parvati, she embodies the qualities of Adi Shakti or divine feminine energy of the cosmos. So, within again Indian mythology, you have very powerful male god figures, like the Trimurti gods are all masculine, are all male gods. But then you also have this image or this idea of the feminine divine power in the universe that's called Shakti, right? And so Parvati is the embodiment of that. And Parvati again has some interesting mythology around her as well. That ties in with the idea of the mother as an incredibly powerful and dominant figure. So when Parvati's followers or her children or her devotees are threatened, she takes on the incredibly powerful form of Kali to distribute divine vengeance and the powers of evil. So, a way to think about her form of Kali or herself as Kali, I guess the best example would be from anime. If you think about an anime character like Naruto, say, when he has to fight a powerful enemy, he levels up. He taps into sage energy, or he taps into the power of the nine-tailed fox, and he becomes this kind of more powerful version of himself. His appearance changes. He has these extra powers, and so he's able to take care of that threat. So that is, I would say that's a good analogy for thinking about Parvati switching into the form of Kali. So Parvati is an incredibly beautiful woman, but as Kali, she takes on darker colored skin, dark blue skin, reddish eyes, wild hair. She gains four arms that all wield divine weapons, and she's unstoppable. As Kali, also, she has a third eye that opens in the center of her forehead that symbolizes her channeling of this divine energy of the universe of Shakti. And in this form, she's called Kali Ma or Mother Kali, and she's also called Durga in this form. So the legend goes that there's this evil shape-shifting demon who cannot be killed. And so every time you kill him or slice him off, drops of his blood fall on the ground and become other versions or other forms of him. And so it's impossible to kill him. There's a Hydra situation going on with him. And so to kill him, Parvati again assumes the form of Kali. And she, again, we see an image of her as Kali here on the right-hand side. And she just does not stop right until she's able to kill and eradicate the demon. And here we have in her hand an image of the demon head. And so in India also, we have the Durga Puja that's celebrated in the fall, where devotees come to temples and they perform worship to Kali or to Durga, right? Who again is a another form of Parvati. So here on the left-hand side, I have images of statues of Durga. So the incredible iconicity of the mother figure in Indian mythology also influences how Indians think about India itself. So during the Indian struggle for independence from British colonialism, the Indians gained independence in 1947. Independence fighters come to imagine the nation itself, this emerging idea of the nation, as a mother goddess called Bharat Mata or Mother India. And so today, Bharat Mata is a common personification of India. If you look at cartographic images of India that show the map of India, you often find that those kinds of images with an image of Parvati, the Divine Mother, right, superimposed upon it. You can tell Parvati from the other goddesses because her mount, her animal mount, is a lion. In films also, in the 1957 iconic film Mother India, you have an allegorical mother figure, right, who's a poor farmer woman who is struggling against unjust landlords and very oppressive social systems and weather and other calamities to keep her children together, to keep her children safe, and to keep the farm together. And so this role is incredibly iconic. It was played by the Indian Muslim actress Nargis, and it was also allegorical. She was imagined to represent India herself. So all of this goes to show you the incredible importance of the mother figure in Indian culture, not only as a figure of beauty and femininity and spiritual power within the family, but also as an embodiment of Shakti, of divine energy, of Parvati, right? So, and this goes for mothers no matter what caste or what class of society you're talking about. This is how people within families would see mothers, even within, say, a poorer family, or even a rich family, right? This is just the culture of motherhood. And so this helps us explain to a degree why Arjuna takes Kunti's word as law. So when Kunti says, share what you have earned amongst yourselves, like when she says it's just the brothers, Arjuna cannot break her command, right? For this reason, because of this kind of divine associations with mothers. And so that is how Draupadi comes to be wed to all five Pandava brothers. I will see you guys next time. I hope this video was helpful. Take care and see you soon.